Hi everyone, greetings from my state-of-the-art recording studio. I'm very privileged to be part of this virtual Folk on the Hill festival and very proud to be helping to fly the flag for the Herger Folk Club in Harrow, and I'd like to sing you a few songs. There was a man who, when he won stuff on the stalls at village fairs, would always choose the tortoise, not the goldfish, not the teddy bears. He'd always answer when they asked him what he wanted as a prize: "I'll have another of those little crunchy pies, crunchy pies. Oh, crunchy pies," and there was hunger in his eyes. "I'll have another of those little crunchy pies, crunchy pies. I know that God created tortoises, but is God always wise? He never gives us clear distinctions, as with tortoises and pies. He could have saved such moral horrors from the likes of me and you, and doubtless for the little crunchy tortoise too. Oh, tortoise too, oh Jesus, tell us what to do, and for Christ's sake tell the little crunchy tortoise too." Thank you. That was a song that Jake Thackeray wrote for his children, just to entertain his kids at home. I'm going to sing you a few more Jake Thackeray songs over the next 20 minutes or so. The next one's a very different kettle of fish, really. This is a song that Jake said was about the human condition, which he said he was in most of the time. This is a song called The Hole. After work on Friday I was waiting for a bus. Me mouth was dropping open and me gaze was vacuous, and in the British workers' classic pose I was leaning on a door, when halfway down the wormy woodwork quite by chance I saw a little hole. I don't know why I did it, I'm an impulsive sort of bloke, but I suddenly felt like giving that little hole a furtive poke. So I stuck me finger in and then I wiggled it about, but once I'd got the bleeder in, I couldn't get the bleeder out of that hole. The hole, just a little hole in a door opposite the bus stop of the number 74. Suddenly my humdrum life was out of my control when I set me wretched eyes upon the hole. Into the night I heaved and strained, but still without success. Then a constable came and asked me for me name and me address. He said I could pull you in for loitering and maliciously lingering, and furthermore you're not supposed to have your finger in that there hole. The hole, just a little hole in a door. How was I to know that I was breaking the law? They sent a big Alsatian and the Vice Squad patrol when they heard about my finger and the hole. A crowd sprung up, the streets were full, the public formed a queue. The national press and the BBC got ready to interview. They said, "Just smile please for the cameras and do stop fidgeting. Tell the world just what it feels like with your digit inside a hole." The hole, just a little hole in a door. Just a small dark recess, nothing less, nothing more. It may seem quite absurd, but it is anything but droll, posing for your picture with your finger up a hole. They sent a special doctor with a special rubber glove and a very special finger and a very special shove. And he poked around and stroked around and he wrote down in his book, "The patient is doing nicely, but he's got his finger stuck up a hole." The hole, just a little hole in a door. Then up came the fire brigade with choppers galore. The door flew off its hinges, it was quite a rigmarole. They dragged us off to prison, me, the door, and the hole. And when I appeared in court I cried, "Me lad, it isn't fair. Mankind will always poke at holes, me lad, because they're there. I'm innocent, I've drunk too deeply from life's bitter cup. And if you don't believe me, stick your worshipful finger up any old hole. The hole, just a little hole in a door, seems I've got to live with it for now and evermore. So figure, come and give a wash and brush up to me soul, for I'm off to meet me maker with me finger up an everlasting hole. Thank you. Jake had an affection or an affinity for the people at the bottom end of the scale, the people who didn't get the fairest crack of the whip. And he had a particular fondness for those people who would just plough their own furrow, not really worry about what other people think, just do their own thing. The woman in this next song is certainly an example of that. This is The Hair of the Widow of Bridlington. She was a widow in Bridlington, she was a widow of Brid, small and bonny at 42, with eyes of a very unsettling blue, and what she thought she ought to do, she did. Whatever she thought she ought to do, she did the widow of Brid. My only darling's dead he is, and all my children grown. The house has emptied, all the lovebirds flown. In place of widow's weeds I'll let my coal-black hair grow long, as glossy as a blackbird's wing, as cocky as his song. She found that she could please herself, she could the widow of Brid, swim in the sea when she felt hot, stay in bed when she did not, and she began to laugh a lot, she did, to sing and dance and laugh a lot, she did the widow of Brid. And some days she would drop the shopping, leave the bed unmade, and sit till evening on the esplanade. She'd sometimes go to church and call on Jesus by his name. She fed as any blackbird would. Whenever hunger came, she learned to play the violin. She did the widow of Brid. And Saturday night in the drinking shop, she jumped upon the countertop and fiddled till the dancers dropped. She did. Stomping upon the copper top, she did the widow of Brid. And she was fond of fishing boats and all their bearded crew, and partial to a salty kiss or two. Some of them would gruffly whisper, marry me and stay, but blackbirds do their singing from a different bush each day. She had the massive motorbike, she had the widow of Brid, and so she could, when so she wished, ride back home early morning-ish, with her hair in the air and smelling of fish. She did. And every time of a different fish, she did the widow of Brid. And though she did no harm, the neighbours sniffed as neighbours do, and day by day a cankerous rancour grew. Many a pair of front-room curtains twitched and shook with rage, for she was wild as blackbirds are, and they were in a cage. They came and smashed her window panes, they did to the widow of Brid, spat upon her cycle shed, dragged her out of her Sunday bed, and cropped her hair and shaved her head. They did. They chopped the hair and shaved the head, they did of the widow of Brid. And when her sobs and hiccups stopped, she tidied everywhere. She cleaned the shed, she swept up all the hair. Some few of them came back in shame to ask her would she stay, But if you ever startle blackbirds, blackbirds, go away. She sold up house and bought a wig did a widow of Brid, and unrepentant, undeterred, she thundered off to cause a stir in poor old bloody Scarborough. She did. Forget the spit and the window pane, bugger Brid, I'm still the same. My hair will always grow again, it did. My hair will always grow again, it did on a widow of Brid. The Widow of Brid, thank you. Jake Thackeray is known primarily as a humorous songwriter, writer of comedy songs. Most of the songs I'm singing are funny songs. But he did have a very serious side, and even the comic songs, even things like The Widow of Brid, there's a real serious and dark, in that case, undercurrent to it, and that's true of quite a lot of the songs, I would say. But this next one is a purely serious song. This is Jake's reflection on the First World War, and it's called Remembrance. Remember the band and the grand parades, the flags, the banners, the fine cockades, and how we all looked up to see the king upon the balcony, who told us we were young and brave, we'd never become the foreigner's slave. If the foreigner comes off best, he said, you'd be better off dead. And this was a couple of weeks before we got killed in the war. Remember the drums and the trumpets played as we set sail on the great crusade, and how we all looked up to see the clergyman on the quay, who told us we were grand and good to fight for God as good men should. If the enemy comes off best, he said, you'd be better off dead. And this was a couple of days before we got killed in the war. Remember the night before the raids as the guns began the cannonade, and how we all looked up to see the captain of the company, who told us we were bold and strong, let fame and glory spur us on. If the enemy comes off best, he said, you'd be better off dead. And this was a couple of hours before we got killed in the war. Remember the shock of the ambuscade, remember the terrible fusillade, and how we all looked up to see the curious face of the enemy, who was young and shabby and seemed to be about as foreign as you or me. I never did catch what the poor sod said when he made sure we were dead. And this was a couple of shakes before we got killed in the war. The Remembrance. Okay, I'm going to finish up now with a final song, and this one's for Jim Titmus, without whom none of this would have been possible, or even necessary probably. But that we all owe Jim a great deal of thanks, and I hope that before too long we can all go and buy him the pint that he deserves for putting all this together and giving us such a great range of entertainment. But until then, Jim, you'll have to make do with this song, which I know is a favourite. This is Sister Josephine. Sister Josephine, what do all these policemen mean by coming to the convent in a grim limousine? After Sister Josephine, while you, Sister Josephine, you sit with your boots upon the altar screen, you smoke one last cigar. What a funny nun you are. The policemen say that Josephine's a burglar in disguise, big bad Norman, 15 years on the run. The sisters disbelieve it, no, that can't be Josephine. Just think about her tenderness towards the younger nuns. Oh, Sister Josephine, they're searching the chapel where you've been seen, the nooks and the crannies of the nuns' canteen. After Sister Josephine, while you, Sister Josephine, you sip one farewell Benedictine before your au revoir. A right funny nun you are. Admittedly, her hands are big and hairy, and embellished with a curious tattoo. Admittedly, her voice is on the deep side, and she seems to shave more often than the other sisters do. Oh, Sister Josephine, founder of the convent pontoon team, they're searching through those bundles of your rare magazines. After Sister Josephine, while you, Sister Josephine, you give a farewell sniff of Benzedrine to the convent budgerigar. Bloody funny nun you are. No longer will her snores ring through the chapel during prayers, nor her lustful moanings fill the stilly night. No more empty bottles of altar wine come clonking from a cell. No longer will the cloister toilet seat stand upright. Oh, Sister Josephine, slipping through their fingers like Vaseline, leaving them to clutch your empty crinoline. After Sister Josephine, while you, Sister Josephine, sprinting through the suburbs when last seen, dressed only in your wimple and your rosary. A right funny nun you seem to be. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the festival. I hope we can all meet in person before too long. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.